Well, hello there. That took me, what, half an hour pretty much to work out how to find the button that says go live because it was hidden by the chat window. Thanks very much for that, YouTube. That's really bloody useless. Sorry, I'm on my phone now as well. So you can just watch my face as I stare down at my phone. Done that. Okay. So you can hear me, can't you? Yes? All right. Loud enough, I believe. This is being broadcast and recorded live from Garden Lounge Creative Space, which you probably can't see very well right now because of my, yet again, creepy lighting. Try doing this instead for the benefit of people outside. There you go, now you can see the crap behind me. Is that better? I don't think so. But anyway, it is what it is. More importantly, it's being recorded and broadcast from Gadigal land, not to be confused with the traditional land, but the actual land, I think is a better way of putting it. The actual land of the Gadigal people, one of the most enduring civilizations on the planet, and that's a fact that we should not forget or ever think that we have thought enough about, in my view. So this is an evolving thing that I've been doing. We were doing a lot of live events with Garden Lounge and happily moved into a larger space to cater for those live events. So I'm just moving so that shiny patch of crap advertising something behind me is not as visible. Yeah, we moved into a bigger space because the live events were going well. We were launching books, we were having poetry readings, music performances, and so on. And what, 2 months after we moved into this bigger space, we then got hit with COVID and now can't have people in here. So anyway, as well as a lot of the rest of the poetry community or the arts community in general, we're trying to find other ways of continuing to engage and share art. For those people who might not know, I believe Poetry Sydney has something coming up soon. But I call it Poetry and Ideas rather than just a poetry shop, with reference to that great institution, Collected Works in Melbourne, which sadly no longer functions as a business. But it was a great place and I would like to remember it. Anyway, for tonight, I'm going to do what I originally said I was going to do and got sidetracked from doing, which is reading from a different book, each reading from the shop, because we have so much, particularly new Australian poetry, as well as poetry generally. So I'm going to read from this book, The Blue Decodes. Looks like it's backwards. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just backwards. Which is by Cassie Lewis. She's an Australian poet. As I said in the promo for this event, she's, I think, quite an underappreciated contemporary Australian poet. She has several collections out, but she's not someone whose name you see a lot in Australia itself. I first became aware of her work when I saw it in Shampoo, the San Francisco-based online journal published by Delray Cross, which is a fantastic international poetry journal, which may or may not be live at the moment because Delray Cross has been sabotaged by homelessness and all sorts of economic challenges after giving years of his life to the good of poetry. Anyway, I picked Cassie's book because she's one poet who is still writing, who has had work published fairly recently. This book itself was published in 2016. I also picked it because it's published by Grand Parade Poets, who I think are a really interesting publisher, in particular in Australia, because they're not as well established nor as closely linked to any academic institution as most of the other ones. Most of the other for want of a better word, big poetry publishers in this country are associated with one or another university. There is some association with University of Wollongong because Alan Learn, who runs Grand Parade, is an honorary at Wollongong, I believe. But anyway, I just thought, why not? I've been talking a lot about UWA books and Giramondo and UQ and people like that recently because they've had new books out. So I wanted to throw a bit of emphasis back onto Grand Parade, as well as to a poet who I thought really should have been read more than she has been. I just kept flicking backwards and forwards because I can't remember what page number the poem was on. I think it's on 37. I do know which poems I'm going to read. So I'm going to read two poems by Cassie. The first one I'm going to read is called Six Conjugations of a Young Woman. And it is on page 37. Look at that. How clever am I? Note that I'm managing to throw weird pauses and like that, and also asides throughout my monologue in such a way that this is going to be impossible to edit to make it easier to watch in future. Great. I'll also probably make the lighting even worse next time. Anyway, so I'm going to read this poem first, Six Conjugations of a Young Woman. Then I'm going to play a couple of songs because one of the key things about Garden Lounge and what we usually do for a regular show is we have a little bit of poetry, a little bit of music, a little bit more poetry back and forth because it basically means you don't have to pay as much attention to one thing for as long. And I know you've all already tuned out by now. So here we go. This is Six Conjugations of a Young Woman by Cassie Lewis from her book, The Blue Decodes. And it's in 6 parts. Part 1, The Critic. Kristaver's oceanic void shows up a distant masking of our features from early childhood and a wild look. Too much self-control and too few facts. On the other hand, media forever. Eventually there's just you alone. Keeping score. Lyricism is not always the best tone to adopt when regarding distance, and you should always factor in the landscape or, in other words, the travel option. I've always thought of Australia as a surface. Under it lie consecutive, deep world, older republics. I had a dream that I was flying down a hill, roads thinned out, beneath them lost villages, future towns, before the bottom dropped out of time as we think of it. Only the brave. I am not going to absorb my own hatred. Must I convert it? And our fake female humility? What about that? Put me out of your mind. Unbearable lightness. There's a lot of chemistry between women who love men. My farce. We are at one and yet dissimilar. We were born under the same Vega star. We've got the same tape still running. Regarding her, the blonde girl has a superb vicarious life. Her boyfriend's a rugby player. She'll give you time for free since there's a lack of point to her. I am far closer to her than to poetry. You must meet her, but it's not practical. We don't exist. Catherine Mansfield and I don't really click. Somehow it's forced. So that was, as I said, Six Conjugations of a Young Woman by Cassie Lewis. Now I'm going to play a couple of songs and then I might just say a little bit more about why I wanted to read some Cassie Lewis and then read one more poem of hers, and that will be the end of it. Pardon my itchy nose. So, I have to try and remember what songs I was even thinking. Oh, that's right. I said I'd do some songs that were somehow connected to isolation. You also have to ignore the fact that I keep stepping off screen right now. I've got to move my badge so that my guitar strap doesn't destroy it. This badge is to signify the fact that I know nothing about cars, really. Apparently I also know nothing about badges and I'll put them on. Hopefully you at least got a good look at my double chins though then when I was doing that. Yeah, I'll see if you can tell if this is in tune. I can tell that's not. Seeing how we're living in the time of COVID, I thought that I would do 2 songs. They're both originals for a change. I really hate that shiny spot behind me. It's shitting me. Look. See? It shits me. It shits me. That was a cover. So anyway, what was I saying? I'm doing 2 songs about, isolation and why it might be a good thing. The first one is quite old. And it's called Itsy. The first lines are, leave me alone and I'll be happy. Please just go. Can't remember. I'll play it. Hopefully I'll remember as I play it. Yeah, I've totally jinxed myself. Anyway, this song's called Itsy. Jesus God, I'm my own best company, but truly not, I'm my own worst enemy. Truly not, I'm my own worst enemy. Enemy, enemy. Well, in my head, as one of everything from the there. One of everything there. In mine, I can't make myself unkind. Want it But the shot. But the shot. I'll be happy. Jesus God, I'm my own best company, but truly not, I'm my own worst enemy. Truly not, I'm my own worst enemy. Enemy, Itsy, I see. And yes, I did some mistakes there. And you wouldn't have noticed, except that I told you. Crank up the distortion. Do you want me to keep doing that? Playing like just open strings? Okay, and this song, I think it's just called Go Away. So Itsy was written about 20 years ago. This one was written about a year ago. Let's see if I can make as many mistakes. Yeah. That's half a mistake. Well, half the song is a mistake. Try again, take 2. Just make it go here. Don't want to take you go here. Don't want to hate you, but I will. Just go away. Just stay away. Just keep away from me today. Don't come to me for anything. I'm not gonna know you know why. Don't wanna hate you, but yeah. Don't want to hate you, but yeah. Don't wanna hate you, but yeah. Don't want to hate you, but I will. This world is ugly. There's nothing for me. Let's go and burn it all away. Get secret fire. Get the fire. Let's go and burn it all away. Better find your heart. Better find the run. Give up all notions of what's safe. Eating dirt and mud. Living the past. Is this the future that you pray? Don't want to hate you for a win. Wanna hate you for a win. Don't want to hate you for a win. Don't want to hate you for a win. Or whatever, you know what I mean? So I managed to make some fairly obvious mistakes. Cover by Chris Edwards, who does all sorts of book covers for Australian poetry, as well as being a poet himself. And published by Grand Parade Poets in 2012. As I was saying, I wanted to mention why I like Cassie's work. Part of what I really like about her work is that she fits, I think, quite well with contemporary English language poetry, especially Australian poetry, in that her work can appear quite difficult to make sense of, to see what the meaning, because I can see that shiny spot behind my head again. She fairly readily shows herself to actually have quite a lot of internal meaning and logic to her work, I think. It's more just that she allows you to make a leap, or requires you to make a leap, rather than it being that she doesn't actually know what she means. I think, anyway, that's what I get from it. So I'm just going to read one more poem, and then that's the end of this whole thing. This is the next poem immediately after the one I read before, The Six Conjugations of a Young Woman. This is called Sophie, and I assume Sophie is her daughter. It certainly reads to me like a poem by a parent to their child, pretty obviously in some lines, though whether it's earnest or in character, who knows, who cares. I really love the poem as a parent myself. I would love to have written something like this for my own children. So here we go, Sophie by Cassie Lewis. A 5-year-old colours a map with no key. Why ocean's blue, sky? Answer me. Mother is one answer. Words form quadrangles. I saw myself from the roof. I was crying, answer me, inside of chalk lines. We write in languages we do not speak. Well, I wrote it down, but it sounds like more. I wrote it down, but it sounds like more. Geometrical blueprints. The day I met your father, I woke up. I hold you, circles in the lilac trees, and I dreamed you saw your edge of my bed, liars in way, but it is borrowed. I couldn't know its origin. I still don't. But your light is entirely new. You arrived here from a new charter, still running at